I've got friends. It's like, you're in bands, and it's hilarious when somebody on the road likes to drink, and they drink a lot. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this a few times, and then they got the hangover, and you're at the breakfast table, before the bus call, and you're like, "Hey, how's it going?" You're like, "Ah."
Hey guys, It is Michael Become the Night. Welcome back to another Become the Night SNOBCAST. I am joined today by guitar player for Pavlov's Dog and Graham Buttler. Sorry, former guitar player for Pavlov's Dog, and also for Graham Buttler, and an extreme gearhead, Bill Franco.
It's funny, I wouldn't call myself an extreme gearhead, but I guess because I hang around with a lot of people that talk gear, but that just means I'm a guitar player. Because that's what guitar players do. We've got gear acquisition syndrome like nobody's business. There's no other instrument that's the same way.
Now, I definitely agree. Technology has a lot to do with that one. But for me, I don't know why. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that when I was younger, I didn't have the chance to play around with a lot of it because I lived out in the middle of nowhere. And also, it was literally just 2 months ago I played my first Les Paul ever.
Really?
Yeah, Gibson Les Paul. Because I finally found a left-handed one at Guitar Center.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, that would be a thing. Man, I grew up in a shop in St. Louis called Silver Strings. And Silver Strings was owned by a guy named Ed Seelig. And at the time, he still has this knowledge, but he was probably one of the most knowledgeable guys on vintage instruments anywhere. I mean, everybody talks about George Gruen, and there's nothing saying that George Gruen isn't knowledgeable. And I don't mean to imply that at all.
And he's a beautiful shop here.
Absolutely. Yes, he does. He's got a fantastic shop. But Ed was every bit as knowledgeable, or is every bit as knowledgeable. And I remember my first real guitar I bought there. Now, when I was a kid, the very first guitar I had was my mom's old Gibson acoustic. It was like a beginner level acoustic that was like 1960. It's probably considered vintage and very valuable. But I had it, and not much longer after I had it, the back starts coming off, and I probably abused the hell out of it. But Mom found a Harmony Marquis Les Paul copy with a bolt-on neck and DiMarzio Super Distortion pickups in it or something like that. Total POS. At a shop called Baton in University City, Missouri, which is a suburb of St. Louis. And I think it was $125. I played that thing, and it was junk. And it was one of those things, it was perfect at the time, but you outgrow those beginning guitars. So Ed had real guitars. He had professional stuff. I bought a 66 Strat from him, mint. And he was like, "Listen, kid, this is a collectible guitar. It's going to be worth a lot of money. Don't get any scratches on it." So, of course, I was terrified of the guitar. And when I would play it, I had a tube sock that I'd cut the foot off of, and I'd put over my arm, and I'd play it, and I'd be like, But, man, that was a great shop. But he had 4 '59 Les Paul Sunbursts in that shop.
Holy
4 of them. I think he sold it. He had a couple that he sold. He had one that he would pull out on a regular basis, and he would bend his favorite note to bend, play an open E chord, and then kind of hang around with it sitting there, and then put it away. And then he had another one that was a museum piece that was as beautiful as any Sunburst Les Paul I've ever seen photographed. And he shouldn't know this, but I've played it, and
so Ed doesn't watch this.
Well, this was with the one of his store managers, who I won't name, but that I was very good friends with, pulled it out, as well as pulled down a Marshall head that had been apparently the legend was one of Dwayne Allman's Marshalls.
Wow. And
we plugged in his two Les Pauls, the Daily Player, which was amazing, and then the museum piece, which might as well have been a painted brick. I mean, it was beautiful, but you couldn't play with it crap.
Oh, really?
But I've played Les Pauls
what's the point of it?
Look at it.
Just to look. Fuck that.
Yeah.
That's
it's
bullshit.
Great. It's great for some some guy who has way too much money and doesn't know what to do with it. It's like the doctor and lawyer guitar. It's like
Nice.
they're gonna buy it and go, look what I have. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it.
You'll find out the secret
Right.
that it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, all my guitars are just things I've slapped together, and they've gone around the world and they've been fine. So
Crazy, right? Mm-hmm. Crazy how if you just take care of things and buy quality stuff, it lasts and does the job for you.
yeah, and if you understand that, it's going to go on the road, so it's going to get the shit kicked out of it.
That's the truth.
If you accept that, then it's like, okay, I've got a real guitar here. Think about Rory Gallagher's guitar. That thing's beat to hell. There's no finish on that he left on that thing. And God, man, I bet that thing's a dream.
After the show, by the way, I need to tell you about an idea I have for making a guitar. I can't disclose it right now because it's a secret project that I'm hoping will break YouTube. I'm hoping it will, but we'll discuss it.
Yeah.
Discuss it. So, what made you want to pick up the instrument in the first place?
Oh, wow. Well, there's the PC version of this, and then there's the not so PC version of this.
Whichever you feel comfortable for the world to see.
Well,
I don't really
I saw
give a
you
shit.
got a lot of subscribers, so I'm trying to think how I want to see this. I'd gotten into a lot of trouble when I was 14. I started off on drums like a lot of guys.
Oh, okay.
And when I was 14, I got into a lot of trouble at home. And so I had to go elsewhere, And so anyway, I will never forget it because it was my first day that I was elsewhere. And it was June 19th of 1981. I was 14 years old. And I walked past this guy's room, and he was playing the end of Eruption, the two-handed section.
Shit, yeah.
And I didn't know that human beings could do that. I mean, I just thought that it was just Eddie, I had no idea, because I will never forget hearing that first Van Halen album. And even though I played drums, it's like I always, in my mind, it's like I'd been a big Kiss fan, and Gene was the guy. I thought Gene was the badass. So it's like, I didn't realize that Gene played bass. And so I just thought, that's cool. He's right up there on the front of the stage doing his thing.
Got a big tongue.
And so, I'm sitting here playing drums, and it's like, well, I can't get right up on the front of the stage and do my thing. So, I mean, the drums weren't for me. I could do Living After Midnight, and that was it, So this guy shows me how to do the two-handed section at the end of Eruption. And I started doing it real slow, and it was really crappy at first, and then over a couple of weeks, I could do it really quickly. And I think it was wrong as far as the note selection, but the technique is the technique. And of course, I thought I was like a god, because here I am, I can play the end of Eruption. But I couldn't play a D chord to save my life.
Wow.
And, I was...
That is ass backwards.
Yeah, totally. I would never suggest that that's the way you should start off. But if it gives you the Jones to play, then it can't be that bad, right?
Do it.
So,
which means, by the way, this guy's a really fucking good guitar player. So he obviously did something right. Obviously. Okay.
But in any case,
you put me to shame. For sure.
In any case, what happened was I was in a place where I didn't really have anything to do. It was the summer between 8th and 9th grade. All my friends weren't around, and I wasn't around them anyway. I didn't have anything else to do, so I was just playing guitar all the time. It was how I filled the time. So after a certain point, it becomes kind of addictive. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I just went for it. And then I was living in Branson my freshman year in high school after that summer, and Branson hadn't blown up to become Branson yet. I mean, you could go off. We were close to the city. I mean, we were right across the lake from the downtown. I don't know if they still call it downtown. And it was not developed. You could go hiking in the woods and not see another house for a while. Wow. And we would. But there was nothing to do on the off season. I mean, there was nothing. Everything shut down. And so I'm playing guitar all the time. And so that became habit. And so I come back to St. Louis after that year. And I started working at the family shoe company. And then when I'd come, for the summer, and then when I'd come home after work, I'd play guitar or whatever. And then I'm back in Clayton, which is a suburb of St. Louis, and I'm going to school. And I just started playing guitar all the time. And that's when I started going to Silver Strings music there, which was also in University City, and that became like my home away from home. I was there like every day. I would ride my bike there until I got my license, and then I would drive there. You know, and I was just always there because that shop at that time was like the coolest shop. And like, I bought my 66 Strat there, and like a month later, was that? Yeah. It's like a month later, Asia was coming to town on tour for their first album. And I walk in, and at the time, the Silver Strings front shop wasn't much bigger than this room, okay? I walk in, and I'm at the front counter, and I turn around, and Steve Howe walks in. And
What?
Ed and Steve Howe are friends. They know one another, and he's sitting there playing. So guess what I'm doing? I'm just like staring him down, going, I'll learn something if it kills me. You know? And I mean, that actually wasn't so uncommon. I remember Howard Leese walked in one time.
Damn.
And
where was this? Was it in Branson?
No, this was in St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis. Okay, sorry.
And then
makes more sense now.
Gary Richrath, who was with REO Speedwagon during their heyday, he walked in a few times. I mean, Tom Petty and Mike Campbell came in. The guys from Huey Lewis and the News.
Hell yeah.
We saw all kinds of people walking through there, and so, you know, you just sit there and watch. If they picked up a guitar, I mean, I met Rory Gallagher twice in there. You know, I've got his autograph somewhere. That's not going anywhere. I got to find that and put that in a little scrapbook. You know?
Oh, for sure.
But I mean, all kinds of cats came in there, and you know, if they picked up a guitar, I mean, obviously I'm going to sit there and watch because those guys are pros. They know their stuff. And I mean, you know, I don't know the guy's name, but he was with Huey Lewis and the News. During the early to mid 80s, I mean, they were so counter to what was going on in the world of guitar, which was just shred-tastic everything, more notes and note density and what's the wildest trick you can do. And he was like a solid bluesy R&B kind of vibe player. And I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan was out, but Stevie Ray Vaughan was a fairly aggressive, could be a fairly aggressive and in-your-face blues guy.
Yeah.
And this guy from Huey Lewis was not that, but dude, vibrato that was just killer. He had killer vibrato, killer tone, and he just picked these great notes, and you just watch and going, huh, you know, I gotta learn that, you know. But anyway, yeah, that's what got me going. And it didn't hurt at all that girls really dug it.
Yeah, they do.
You know, man. It's like
that's one of the reasons why if I typically meet a girl, I do not explain to them that I'm a musician or talk a lot about it, because either A, it's going to make them attracted to me for the wrong reasons.
Right.
Or B, they're going to think I'm a douchebag immediately.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's weird. There's this weird thing that happens with musicians, and it's like there are girls that just dig musicians because they're musicians, and it has nothing to do with whether they can play well or whether they're good looking or whether they're nice or anything, because I've seen guys in bands that look like a wart on a frog's ass, can't play, and they're complete assholes, but they're just nailing some hot chick. And it's like, how did that happen? Because, you know, I can't imagine any girl that I would want to date that would ever put up with that.
Yeah,
you know,
legit.
I mean, if I were like that with Julie, I'm sure I'd be missing teeth. You know what I mean? I mean, she wouldn't put up with that, you know? So, you know.
Ah, jeez. Yeah, I don't get that whole thing, man. I don't know what makes a musician attractive in the first place. I can see like some amount of sex appeal when you're up on stage, some of that, but like just like I don't know. I guess I don't have a vagina, so I don't understand it.
Well, I think so. A couple of buddies and I thought about this, and it's like, well, think about it. Typically, if you're a musician, where you're performing, you're in a darkened room, right?
Truth.
It's got one or two lights, and they're all pointing on you and no one else. So there could be Brad Pitts all over that room. you never know. She can only see you. You know.
Hey, you know what? That's a very good point.
You know, and that's it. I mean, it's that you're in the spotlight. It's the same thing with politicians. I mean, let's talk about this.
Oh no!
Yeah. Have you ever heard the saying, "Washington is Hollywood for ugly people"?
Yes, yes, I have. I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
think
true.
about that.
So true.
These guys, these are some of the least physically attractive people in the country.
Some of the most annoying.
Some of the most annoying people in the country. Some of the most dishonest people in the country.
That's for fucking sure.
But holy crap, you know, there's a lot of sex going on in that city.
Lots of drugs too.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with the power, though. Power and the money.
Yeah, man. You know, my father and my grandfather told me the same thing, and that is, if you see the way a person is compensated, you can predict with near 100%, if not 100% accuracy, how they'll behave. And that there's only 3 forms of compensation that are fundamental, and everything else is a derivative of these 3 forms. And there's money, clearly, that's a form of compensation. There's power, and there's sex. And if you have control, a significant control over any one of those 3, the other 2 will flow to you easily. Wow. And I remember them telling me that, and I thought, right. And so that explains why people spend so much money to run for office when there's no way that their salary is ever going to recompense them for what they've spent on that campaign.
Their salary, their stipend.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, think about what happened here in Nashville recently.
Oh yeah.
You know, with the mayor, she got caught fooling around and
with the head of her security detail.
Yeah, and it's not that that's a big deal because, you know, she may have an agreement with her husband where they can step out and see other people.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's between them.
Everything.
But apparently, depending on how they add the numbers, it's like $100,000 to $180,000 of taxpayer money was used so she could go out and get laid. And it's like, I don't begrudge anybody going out and getting laid. If that's what they want to do, more power to them. God knows I like it too. But it's like using the taxpayer money. I mean, that's embezzling. Mm-hmm. And so she pled guilty to felony theft. But she's only having to pay back $11,000, and it's unsupervised probation. If that were you and me, we would be in prison. Then we'd be on parole, highly supervised, probably with an ankle bracelet. And if we had and we'd probably be paying back the whole damn thing.
Yep.
And so, I mean, that's kind of nasty. But, it's like, same thing happens in Chicago and St. Louis. I mean,
it's a lot worse in Chicago. It's a lot worse there, man.
Yeah,
that city's one of the worst in the country, actually.
Well, I mean, being from St. Louis, it's like, that's a classic example of a dying city. I mean, when you look at what has happened with race relations, that before the whole Michael Brown thing started,
I didn't even realize it was that bad before it started.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. There's a clear delineation in St. Louis at Del Mar Boulevard, where there's a clear delineation of who goes where, and it's a very racial division, and it's really too bad. If the city could unify the way Nashville and Davidson County became one metropolitan area, I bet you it would do wonders. But when I was there, for example, I lived in Clayton. I had a house in Clayton. Clayton has the best school district in the state, one of the best in the country. I didn't want, while I owned my house there, I didn't want Clayton to merge with a couple of neighboring municipalities because, well, frankly, they weren't as nice. They had lower housing values. The school district in one of them was really not that good at all. And I thought, well, how's this going to impact the value of my house when I go to sell it? So I understand that. And so it's like I see both sides of it. Now that I'm away, it's like, yeah, they really kind of got to bite the bullet and do it, because I think if they don't do it, the city will die. The city proper, the city of St. Louis itself, is dying. They're doing things like they're revitalizing, Washington, or they revitalized Washington Avenue downtown or gentrified it, and I know that gentrification can be a bad word, but at the same time, it's kind of the natural order of things.
Yeah.
If things get run down to a point, you have to fix them, and otherwise, it's like, what, you want to live in Escape from New York land? Which, by the way, that area that they gentrified is where they shot all the exterior shots for Escape from New York.
No kidding! That's awesome.
And it was a lot like that. Yeah. I mean, I remember watching that in the theater when I was a kid, going, "Hey, I know that place," because my grandfather had told me that they'd shot a lot of the exterior scenes. Like they took like the plane carcass and set it down, and they built the row of cars. But at the time, that area, which now the City Museum is in this area. The City Museum, if you're in St. Louis, go to the City Museum. With your kids, you'll have a lot of fun. Great first date area, too. But at the time, it was a very rough area. And so they didn't have to do much, and that's why they shot all the scenes there. Because not much had to be done to make it look like hell, you know?
That's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
I had no idea St. Louis was that bad off, man.
Well, it is. And here's what's crazy. St. Louis has what's known as the Central Corridor. Mm-hmm. If you're in the Central Corridor, it's as nice as any place else you can imagine. I mean, you know, I grew up in Clayton, and Clayton for St. Louis is like Brentwood or Green Hills here in Nashville. I mean, it's a nice area. You've got some solid middle class to extremely affluent people. Then as you go out farther west, because St. Louis, Clayton butts right up against the city limits. As you go farther west to a place like Huntley. Huntley is where the people like the Bush family, and I mean Anheuser-Busch, not politics Bush. Gotcha. The Anheisers and the Bush family and the people who were involved in starting Monsanto and Mallinckrodt, that's where they live. And they send care packages to the millionaires because they've got ungodly money, you know. And then as you go farther west, it's like if this is the east and this is the west, it's a cone that it kind of fans out like this, and it becomes really nice. Now, if you're in the north or the south side of that area, outside of the Central Corridor, it's not so great, because the city politicians are incredibly corrupt. The school district sucks. Everything's rough, and it's tough. It's very tough. I lived for a little while on 39th Street between Russell and Castleman on the south side. And it was a real wake-up call. Here I'd been this kid who had lived in a real nice bubble of the Central Corridor in Clayton. And then I'm living on the south side on 39th Street. And we probably had, I think there were like 4 or 5 shootings a week in about a half-mile radius from there. But, you know, I was 18 when I moved out, so I thought I was invincible, right? Of course. Yeah, well, that won't happen to me, and clearly it didn't. But, you know, but if I had the money now, I would never move back, you know. Or to that area. I would never move to that area. But as it is now, I mean, I'm in Nashville. Why would I want to move back to St. Louis? Not given the way it is now.
Love this town.
Yeah.
Love this town so much. I'll preach it for days.
Oh, yeah.
Don't move here. Do not move here.
We're full.
We are so full.
Yeah, we are full.
Oh my gosh. Probably gonna have to take a quick break here really shortly. But I did want to ask you really quick. Oh no, we can save that for later. We can take a break now.
Okay.
Right. Guys, we're gonna take a quick break. See you guys shortly. Hey guys, it is Mike with Become the Night. Welcome back to the cast. Sorry for the short break. Again, here with Bill Franco. We just went through so many things with gear, and I'm really disappointed that we didn't capture this on camera. Part of me was just like we have my amp set up over here, just like, we'll just move everything over there.
Yeah.
Let you jam on camera, and I'll just talk off camera, you know, and just like.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to hear that, but that's okay.
You'd be shocked, man. I actually, I'll show it to you once we're done here. There was a song that was commissioned by one of my patrons, and he's like, I want a song that sounds like these 3 songs. They're all from Australian bands. 2 of them are 90s grunge, and one of them is like straight ahead modern metal, like in the North European style. Okay. You know, like sounds that don't necessarily go together. And I mean, I was not totally comfortable with releasing it. I just felt like something was off with it or whatever. And he was like, nah, go ahead. I love it. I'm like, okay. Matt got really great reception on it.
Cool.
Really great reception. Like surprisingly good. So I mean, no matter what you think about your playing, they liked my stuff. So
well, I will tell you something. I did a live album with a band that I shall not name.
Oh, okay. I like this story. Please, let's continue. I know this story.
I've told you this one?
Yes. Oh, I would love to hear it again.
Okay.
Please.
So we were on tour in Europe and in 2009, and we're playing this club. Really great club. A lot of cool people have played there.
It was in Germany, right?
It's in Germany.
Okay.
And
that probably gave it away to the people that know the story.
Yeah. But I'm not naming the band, so if I get any nasty phone calls...
What band?
Yeah, if I get any nasty phone calls, I didn't name you, so fuck you.
Send them my way.
Yeah.
Send them my way. I'll deal with them.
So anyway...
I could always do a review. Let's put it that way.
Right. So we didn't know we were being recorded, okay? So sound check was rough because there was a certain member of the band whose guitar, not mine, was way too loud. And so therefore, trying to hear things in the monitors was real hard. And you can have so much volume on stage, man, that you just can't hear anything really. And so what happened was it was the most perfect of imperfect storms,
okay.
And in which that we couldn't hear anything on stage really. So I don't know what front of house put out there, but what we heard was cacophony. So I couldn't really hear myself. Keyboard player couldn't hear himself. The violin, none of us could hear one another because there were certain stage volumes that were too high. And so when I was trying, I didn't want my amp to be louder, but I wanted to have something coming through my monitors so I could hear myself. That was probably a bad idea. What we probably all should have done is that the 6 of us should have ganged up on the one.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Turn it the fuck down before we kill you.
Fire that person.
Well, that person couldn't be fired, unfortunately, in that situation. Fortunately or unfortunately, it doesn't matter. But anyway, so there was that. We couldn't hear one another. And then there were a couple of members that drank significantly before the show. Now, I don't care what you want to do with your own stuff, but if you can't keep your shit together for the stage, then don't do whatever it is that makes you not keep it together. Save it for afterwards.
Yep.
So we're playing and nobody can hear anything. And there are things you do when you're playing, like if your guitar gets slightly out of tune, you'll bend things a little bit to be in tune, or you'll avoid certain strings if they've slipped too far, until you've got a moment where you can correct it or check it. Well, if you can't hear, you have no idea what's going on. And so I mean, that was the show of the unmitigated constant tuning. I mean, every moment I stepped on my tuner and tuned up my guitar, because I was I lacked confidence.
A little insecure as to what the hell was going on.
Right, because I changed strings that day.
Oh, no.
On the guitar that I was playing, I had a locking system. I had a Floyd. And, with a Floyd, it's like they're perfect and totally reliable if you've got some time to stretch out the strings.
Yes.
But generally that means you want to be playing on it for maybe a day.
Yeah.
Okay? And I mean, that's my experience anyway. When I was younger, it would be faster. But as I got older, I think the sweats in my fingertips are less acidic, so they don't age the strings as quickly. So I lacked a lot of confidence. So anyway, bad show, so bad that one guy, we're at the signing table, one member of the band turns to the other member of the band and lunges at him. It's the same member of the band that had been drinking so much. So
I don't know if I remember this part of the story.
It was incredible. It was like, wow, this is really happening. So I remember the bass player and I had to get between the two of them and separate them, and it was really embarrassing.
Of course.
But that kind of gives you an idea. We couldn't hear anything, so the only person who was in tune that night really was the keyboard player, because I mean, it's keyboard.
Wouldn't that be some shit if they actually were out of tune?
Right. It's like the guitars were just a little out of tune. You could kind of hear it. The vocals were all over the place.
Oh.
And the violin was out of tune. And it's like it was amazing because the violinist in that band was very good, had great intonation, but if you don't have your ears, your intonation it goes out the window.
Absolutely.
So our tour manager took the aggressive member of the band to task the next morning. Let that person know never to do it again.
Which, by the way, sign of a good tour manager.
Yeah.
Don't let the artistry, or not the artistry, don't let the artists
be an asshole.
Yeah, essentially.
And so then the next night we knew that the show was being documented on film and going to be recorded. And everybody, especially given how bad the last performance was, that was the worst performance that band had ever put together. Normally the band was a decent band, we represent the songs, favorably. But that was, everybody gets a bad night. That was a bad night. The next night was probably the best performance that band had ever done. Everybody was on point. Everybody was paying attention. You got cameras crawling on you.
You learn from those mistakes the night before.
Right. Well, it's like it's not so much that we were just typically a bad band. It's just if you can't hear, you can't hear, and you're just done.
Yeah.
But in this case, we had great monitors. We were able to keep stage volume at proper levels, so everybody could hear everything, and nobody wanted to look like an idiot with the cameras going. Okay, so jump forward a year, and we find out that they're releasing a live album, and we're told it's the second one. Cool, I'm good with that. I'll sign the release on that, and they wrote us checks to compensate us for our performance on that. Excuse me. So anyway, we're on the way to the venue where the bad gig had been, and we're going to play another gig there. And they're playing the live album, and it's horrible. It's fucking horrible. And I was like, "What the hell is this?" and they're like, "Well, it's the live." I was like, "You told me it was this show. I know we didn't sound like that on this show." And everybody's like, and so they let the cat out of the bag. It was the bad show that they released. I was like, well, "What the hell did you do that for?"
You wouldn't have signed a release for
I
that.
wouldn't have signed the release. I would have never
Nobody
signed the release.
would have.
Yeah, I would have never signed the release. I would have never let my photograph, my image or name be on this record because it was really bad. And they were like, "Well, we had different drops for all the instruments, and we could isolate all the different instruments. Versus on the other one, we had a stereo drop." And I was like, and so we could better manage the mix. I was like, you know what? It's a live recording. It's not like it's Kiss. I said, how did you get things to sound in time? Because I know that the drums were all over the place, and the drums were all over the place.
Yeah.
The time was...
And that's going to be bleeding into everything on a live stage.
And so when you listen to that album, and I still haven't named the band or the album, when you listen to that album, you can hear these weird transients that don't quite line up because the road manager, being a drummer himself, took all the drum parts and spliced them and then lined them up so that they'd be in correct time. Well, you got a problem. Now you got to move all the other instruments to make it work. And so he had to do all this stuff.
Technically speaking, yes, because of what you said, the transients. Yeah.
And so the transients are all over the fucking place. And it's like, oh my God, it sounds so bad. And it's like, well, if you were going to do that, why did you goddamn pitch correct some shit? You know,
for real.
It's like,
at
why?
This point,
you know, it's like at that point,
why don't you make us sound like fucking Pavarotti? You know?
Yeah, it's like, why didn't you just have us go in the studio and play the parts? You know, we'll do a Kiss Alive one or a Duran Duran live album thing. You know what I mean? Why not? I mean, if you're gonna do that, just do that. You know.
That blows my. Okay, so tip to any one of you out there that might be thinking about being an engineer, like a studio engineer, or for that matter, a musician. Pick the best performance over the best recording.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just telling the guy, I was like, you know, I don't care how much you polish this thing, it's still a fossilized turd.
Yeah, straight up.
And I mean, it's horrible. I can't listen to it. I remember at the end of the tour, he gave me 3 copies that he had left over. He goes, "Here, give this to your friends." I was like, "I'm not giving this to anybody."
You can fucking burn it.
Yeah, it's like those things saw the trash. I'm hoping that they're in a heap somewhere, broken and busted. But anyway, just remember, I never named the band nor the record, though anybody involved knows exactly what I'm talking about. It was just really bad. But you know, it was funny because there's video, you know, that people would do with their phones of the other thing, and it was great. I mean, it was
pretty sure I was like,
I was like, man, you know, it just killed me. It really killed me because the band. Every band's allowed to have a band night. I mean, I saw Van Halen in '86, and they didn't have a good night that night. I mean, they really didn't have a good night that night. That was hard for me because Eddie's my number one hero, but they had a bad night. I've seen other bands that are well-known live bands not do well. I mean, I saw Aerosmith one time in the '80s, and it was rough, man. Now, it was when Perry and Whitford weren't with them. Okay. But and I remember Pat Travers opened up that show. Pat Travers blew them off the stage, and I saw Aerosmith again when Perry and Whitford had come back, and it was the tour that Guns N' Roses opened up that show. And Guns N' Roses was great. They weren't great at playing together at that time, but you couldn't beat their energy. I wasn't surprised that the next time they came to St. Louis, there was a riot. I mean, it was intense. But when Aerosmith came on that next time, they were unbelievable. And I think I should say that because, I mean, you know, it's like if I'm going to say, oh, this band sucked live, I think I need to give, you know, like a band like Aerosmith or Van Halen, I think you need to also say, hey, I've seen them at other times, you know, before and since that they were unbelievable. Like I've seen Van Halen a number of times, and I've only seen them bad once. Like
you said, you know, every band has a bad night. You know,
right. So this band that recorded the live album, it was really horrible, and unfortunately, it was caught for posterity. And you know,
that hurts, man. That
well,
really does.
Here's the thing, though. There was a guy. What you were saying about people digging it. There was a guy. I'm in Chicago with Julie, my girlfriend, and we went to see Thin Lizzy.
Nice.
On I guess it was a Friday. Was it a Friday or Saturday night? We saw Thin Lizzy, and the next night we were seeing Jeff Beck with the Imelda May band.
Oh, dude. That was a synchronized dude.
Stereo dude.
Stereo dude.
Julie,
can we make that a band?
Oh, Stereo dude.
That would be fucking great.
Yeah, but it was great. So, Julie. Knows Vivian Campbell well enough that Vivian saw us we got up in front. It was general admission on the floor, and you know, it's like every time we go to a show, Vivian Campbell's playing, like the Thin Lizzy show or a Def Leppard show. When he sees Julie, he goes, "Hi, Julie." You know, he's a very nice guy. I've met him one time. Very nice man. So we had backstage passes. So we go back there, and it turned out Rich Fortis was there. Rich is of Guns N' Roses, and he's also a St. Louis guy, and so he and I have a lot of mutual friends and are kind of aware of who one another are. And when I saw him on stage, he looked at me and he goes, "What are you doing here?" So anyway, I go backstage, and I'm talking with Rich, and Julie's talking with Vivian, and so I'm talking with Rich for a bit, and there's this guy. He's a concert reviewer, and he's also a vocalist. And so Rich asked me what I was doing, and I told him I'd been on the road for a few years with. So this guy, his name's Kevin Pollack, and he's the vocalist on this Graham record. He goes, "Are you on the live record?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I love that record." So you might have to edit out because I just mentioned the band.
Yeah, yeah.
You can edit that out.
No worries, no worries. So, yeah, I will.
Let me start over.
That's why. No, you don't have to start over.
Okay,
I can manage it.
I'll clip it here. So Rich tells me asks me what I'm doing. I tell him that I'm out with this band.
No. Like I already got it. Like,
okay.
I can just audio it over.
You'll get you'll show like an Italian flag in front of my mouth, or you like Craig Ferguson.
Yes, absolutely. Craig Ferguson's the man.
We saw a live taping of his show. He was awesome.
What?
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, dude.
But anyway,
my brother would be so jealous.
Oh, he was awesome. But so he asked me if I'm on this live album, and I said, I'm really hesitant because I don't want to admit to it, right? Mm-hmm. And I went, yeah. And he goes, I love that album. And I was like, really? he goes, yeah.
Are you sure?
And I was like, okay. I said, well, I'm glad you do. And I could see Rich was like, at one point, Rich asked me later, he goes, you don't like that album? And I told him the whole deal with it, and he was like, because Rich has been around forever, and he's been in all kinds of situations. You can only imagine what he's seen or heard about, Yeah. But in any case, so I wound up talking with Kevin. Julie and I wound up talking with Kevin for hours, because there was just a lot to talk about. We were just going through a bunch of stuff. He goes, hey, there's this guy named Graham Buttler who's recording an album. He's a songwriter and he's an engineer and he's doing his own production. You think you'd like to contribute some stuff to him? I said, well, I don't know. I said, I'd like to hear this stuff before I say so.
Of course.
And he says, well, is it okay if I give him your number? I was like, absolutely. So I get a call from Graham. I don't know anything about Graham. And it turns out Graham, younger guy, great drummer, killer drummer.
He's a drummer.
He's a drummer.
Wow.
His dad is a composer. I don't know what his dad does for a living. But his dad is like this really, really incredible composer. Knows all the theory. I think he's got his PhD in music and all this stuff. Really nice guy, nice family. Anyway, so I said, well, before I commit, I said I'd kind of like to hear the stuff beforehand. And I said if I think it's a good fit for me, yeah. So he emails me these tracks, and some of them are more fleshed out than others. Some of them are just bare bones. But regardless, you can hear that these are really great songs. And I was like, I'm in. I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just let me do it. And the reason why is because with this other band, that live album I felt was so embarrassing. I didn't want anybody to hear it. And I didn't want to say people to think, well, that's all that this guy's good for. It was embarrassing.
I know what you mean, man.
So, and there was a studio album that came out from this band around the same time. That was a solid studio album, but this band had albums, in its heyday that were pretty good and remarkable, and the stuff that they're putting out now is just it's not there. It's not that it's bad. It's just there's no to it. So happens to a lot of people. Anyway. So I learn as much of the songs as I can, and I go up to Woodstock, Illinois, where Graham is living with his parents at that time. He'd moved back home, and he had set up a studio in a room in his basement. He had a pretty good-sized basement, and what have you. Got up there. It was funny. I drove from Nashville up to Woodstock, which is a little bit. I went up 65 through Indianapolis into Chicago and past Chicago to Woodstock, and I got up there about midnight, and I brought in all of my guitars. I brought my Les Paul, Tellys, Strat style guitars, which is what I had, and I brought my acoustic and a nylon string just in case. As many different effects as I liked as I could, and a couple different amps, just to give him options. Say, well, if you want this, I've got this. So I go up there and I do that, and we did acoustic stuff because his parents are sleeping. So you don't want to fire up the Marshall and go, "Hi,
yeah,
I'm Bill."
You're kicked out of the house. Yeah. Bye, Graham.
Well, actually, here's the thing. His parents would have probably been pretty cool about it because they were extremely supportive of what he was doing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So, but I didn't know that, and so I didn't want to be the guy. So we did some acoustic stuff and started recording. So I had about a day up there, and we had it's like in the album I can hear anyway a very clear delineation between when I recorded all the rhythms that I recorded for Graham. I recorded there. I think that time. But we had a hard time because it was winter and they had a lot of ice up there, and one of the things that had happened is the hall, which went to the studio room, there was a full bathroom, and across from that there was a bedroom. That's where I stayed. Well, something had broken, and they had to have somebody come in, a plumber, and I think a pipe must have done something with frozen or something. So we had all this noise from the plumber doing his thing, and there's no getting around that. So then we had issues, because of all that, and the plumber doing his thing, and using the same kind of outlets, because the house wasn't built with a studio in mind. There's a lot of buzz coming through my amp, and when the guy would stop, it would go away, and everything would sound cool. But it was like all this stuff that we had to combat, and so you can kind of hear that. The rhythms are kind of there, but you can hear that like the solos are rushed.
Oh, okay.
They're definitely rushed.
Because you had like a very short window of time.
Time was going, and so it's like I had to leave Illinois and get back down to Nashville.
This is like the most that's such an interesting recording story, legitimately.
Well, it's not like
the solos were rushed, not because we had a time schedule of the producers got to get this out. It's like, no, because the plumber in my mom's house was only here during this time.
Well, they had to fix that so that they wouldn't have a cascading plumbing problem.
Of course,
and that's totally understandable.
But it's just it
just happened to be at that time.
In context of other stories, it's awesome, dude. It's
Yeah.
so DIY. It's fucking that's where it's at.
Well, what's crazy is that album was done so efficiently as far as from a cost perspective.
Yeah.
And Graham's writing was so incredible. Just so everybody knows, it's a guy named Graham Buttler, Graham Butler.com.
For you British folks out there, that's a H.
Yeah. And then the album's called Dread Fascination. And so I think if you go to grahambutler.com or dreadfascination.com, you can listen to that album for free. And God, it's just amazing. It was funny because there was one song, the second half of the song, it was the last song I was doing any kind of rhythm work on. I was having a hard time understanding what was happening in the second half because I had run into a block of time where I wasn't able to really get that part together. And so Graham's not using your typical power chords all the time. He's using some extended chords with some pretty interesting voicings. So hearing all of that was tough. And then I was trying to rethink how it would happen because things change. Well, it turned out he rewrote from after that point where I recorded the solo. He rewrote that half of the song, and it's so much better. And I was like, dude, I wish you'd have called me. I would have loved to have played those parts too. I mean, they were just so cool. But in any case, then I went up, I guess, a few months later and recorded a couple solos, a couple things. I did a solo for Dread Fascination, which starts off cool, but I'm not happy with what I did at the second half because it's just it was one of those things. I was playing a gig in Milwaukee, and I had to drive. So I drove from Nashville up. No, was it
You made it to Milwaukee at some point.
I made it up to Milwaukee. And so I had, on the way back, I had one day to record at Graham's. So I stopped at Graham's, had a hard time getting a tone.
I don't know how.
Well, the reason why is because there were just power issues.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
We could get plenty of power if the amp was in the control room with us, but it was so damn loud you couldn't really hear much of anything else.
Yeah. And at that point, I mean, you might even be concerned about reflections and shit. If it's gonna
and it didn't sound. The amp didn't sound as good in the studio room as in the bedroom. In the bedroom, it sounded great, but we were having issues with the power, and I think because something with the cable was so long, because this is a shoestring thing, it was a weak signal. It sounded like something was lacking. I think what it was is the cable was long enough that the capacitance, something in the cable length jacked up the tone basically. And it's like if I were more of an engineer and more experienced, I could probably tell you exactly what happened, but I'm not. So anyway, so we wound up doing it in the room with headphones on, which shouldn't have been a problem. Tone wasn't as good as the other room, but you do what you got to do. And I was rushed again, and the next day I drove. That night I left. I drove to St. Louis and had some other gigs with the same band. And so then in that time I went with. I later went with Pavlov's Dog overseas. I had a tour, which would have been a lot of fun if I didn't have nerve damage, but had really bad nerve damage, and had a really hard time playing because it's one of these things. It was a scaling nerve. I couldn't feel the fingers in my hands and this, that, and the other. So I made it through, but it was no fun. But the tour was fun. Anyway, got back right after Winter NAMM in January of 2013. Graham at that point had moved out to LA. I went to his house to record a solo, and it was like right after my nerve damage got better, I got T-boned on the driver's side by a woman, which was like, you gotta be kidding me, And so I'm trying to record this 8-bar solo, and he's like, what's taking you so long? So I said, well, I had this nerve damage issue, and I got T-bone, and so I'm this is like a week and a half after.
I'm a broken man.
It's like I am cursed. But anyway, I also was in a position where I was putting together, some recording gear in my own house. And so I got a good interface. Dude.
I don't know what's going on. I have an upstairs neighbor.
The moose is on the loose.
Who gets stompy.
Yeah.
Which we're gonna have to take a break here really quick.
Okay.
But we will be right back with Bill Franco. Stick around. The thing that sold me on Guthrie was when I saw his little, it was called Professor Shred. It was like, I think it was a Guitar World like educational video on YouTube. The thing that struck me about him is like, these are things that I already knew about and some things that I didn't quite know how to access, and he bridged the gap in such, like, pardon the term, but like pleb speak. He did it so well, explaining these complex things in a way that anyone could understand them if you're like a musician.
Right.
And that and the fact that I later watched him play and I was like, holy shit, he really knows his stuff, which is as a testament to the axiom of the better you know things, the easier it is to explain them to other people in the most simplest way possible.
Right.
He's a master.
It's like, what was it? Einstein said, any idiot can make something complex. It takes true genius to make it simple.
Yup.
Yup.
This is a perfect place to come back in.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let me finish with this thing with let me finish up the Graham thing.
Absolutely.
So we did the solos and stuff. I went back, but I got my own gear to record in, and I wound up getting some really good preamps. Limited budget, so I couldn't spend a ton of money. And I went through, and it's like I was like, well, how do I approach what preamps to get? Because it's like it's a crapshoot if you're like me and you don't know anything. So I thought, well, what albums do I really dig the tones on? What do I want to recapture. And I just went in, I Googled it and did some research. I found that, with the exception of the early Van Halen albums, everything was done through Neve console.
Yep.
And, it's like where those early Van Halen albums were done, I think, at Sunset Sound through an API board, which I could be wrong, but that's what I found out. I was like, okay. And it's like, I just didn't want to find out what made a great guitar sound. I wanted to find out what a good bass would sound like, and drums and stuff. And so
bass and kick through a Neve sound. I mean, just about anything through a Neve sounds fantastic, but anything that has that low end, that punch, Neve is where it's at, man. It really is.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something. When I started looking around, it's like a lot of the Neve stuff was really expensive. Now Rupert Neve has left Neve, the original company, and he has Rupert Neve Designs. Well, they're a lot more affordable. I mean,
really?
A lot more affordable.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
and he does like outboard preamps.
He's got a 500 series, the Portico series. I think it's the 511. It's the 511 that I have for mic pre's. Dude, the difference between with it and without it is night and day. There's something that blooms.
$500.
Basically,
I'm in.
$500 to $600.
I'm in. Done.
It's awesome.
I'm sold.
It's so awesome.
Does it come with an interface, or do you need your own interface with it?
What I did is I mounted them in a radial workhorse, and then went out to my my Focusrite. I've got a Sapphire Pro 40.
Okay. Well, sorry. We'll discuss later. Please continue your story.
So anyway, there were some solos I had done I was really not happy with. I was like, Graham, you gotta let me redo these things. So he was like, well, I'm going to mix it on this date. If you can have them ready. I said, okay. So anyway, the first solo that I did at home was for a song called My Disguise. And so about 6.5 minutes in, that's when the solo happens.
I feel like I just listened to this solo.
You did. It's amazing. I just transferred it right over. But I also did record it on video because I had just gotten some lace pickups, the Illumitones.
Yes, we're going to be getting into gear here shortly.
Yes,
we're going to.
And one of the things, it's like I'm a lace artist, and they sent me these pickups, and I put them in a guitar, and at first I was like, whoa, because it's very clear. And so then I had recorded some stuff just to kind of see what it really sounded like, because you can hear something when you're playing it, but when you hear it coming back to you, you start going, oh, I mean, you got to hear both. And so what it is the clarity's there, and some people mistake the clarity for brightness, but it's just there's no mush in the middle at all. So you're hearing it's like hi-fi, it's like high fidelity, it's like high definition for your pickups versus standard definition. Anyway, I set up a video camera to do it when I was going to do it, so that I could do all of that stuff and put a video together to demo the pickup. So I got up, and it was one of those things. I was working on the solo all day, just going through my ideas and stuff. Couldn't really get anything together. I go to sleep, and it's about 3 a.m, and I wake up out of a dead sleep, and it's all there. I mean, it's all there. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I think anybody who's recorded has been in the exact same spot. And so I run downstairs, I turn on everything, and I just do it. And I think it was like 15 minutes later, I was back upstairs. But that was like one of those magic moments. It's like it almost never happens. And if you listen to like the Dread Fascination solo, which you might feel like you heard that one recently too. It's like that was something that was take after take after take, because I just felt like it wasn't good.
For the record, I thought it was really good. I thought it was really
very
good.
Nice. Graham liked it, and that's the bottom line. It's his record.
You guys know me. I'm not very nice.
Well, anyway, Graham was happy with it, and he was the boss. He wrote the stuff. He engineered it. He was taking care of everything. So then there was another solo I had done. It was after I had nerve damage. It was after I'd been T-boned on my driver's side car by this woman, and my left arm basically had been a meat punching bag for the last few months. And when I recorded the solo for him, it was just really horrible. And I remember, begging him to let me take the solo. I was like, "Look, what would it sound like if you just took that solo section out?" And so he took the solo section out, and the sound sounded fine. You didn't really need the solo section. I said, "Well, why don't you leave it like that?" And he goes, "I like having a solo." I said, "Well," I said, "imagine you're a gourmet chef and you fix this perfect meal and you've got it set on the table and somebody comes and takes a dump right on the middle of the table." I said, "That's what that solo is. You gotta let me at least try and get rid of it, or just get rid of it altogether, because it was a really bad solo." And I'm not afraid to say, if I did something that sucks, it sucks. So went back.
It's called being a professional. It's called being a professional.
It's called being honest,
an honest professional.
And it was just horrible. And so I just wasn't able to play. So anyway, I remember getting everything set up, and I had never really mic'd an amp before. And in all honesty, when I did this, I tell everybody I did the Mighty Sky solo with my Marshall, because I had a Kemper at the time, and the Kemper had a profile of a 75 Marshall Mark II, which is what I have. So I was like, I just dialed it to sound exactly like my Marshall. So yeah, in kind of a way I did use my Marshall, but I didn't have to wake up the neighbors.
Yep.
Yep. But anyway, I was using my actual amp for the Faith Alone solo, which was what I had originally done was just god awful. And I used the amp I used was made by a guy named Obed Khan, who now has Khan amps, and he's got this little amp. I can't remember what it's called, but he was designing the Reason amps, and I had a Reason Bambino, which basically was my Marshall in an 8-watt package in a 112 combo. Phenomenal amp. They're no longer around, and it's heartbreaking to me that company's not around, because it's just a fantastic company. Obed Khan and Anthony Bonadio were the guys in that company. Just phenomenal amps. I'm glad I have it. Anyway, so I took the Bambino, and I spent all day, and I had never really mic'd a cabinet before, myself. So I'm researching how to do all this, and I'm moving everything around little by little, and I find that sweet spot with an SM57, and it sounds really nice. It's really great. So on this day, my girlfriend has a friend who comes and visits, and she comes, and she's very cool about recording. She's very quiet while Julie comes home. So Julie comes home, and the mic is kind of standing off. The boom is standing. I guess it's in the way. So she moves the mic and goes past. I lost my mind. I was like, "Oh my God!" I spent all day getting this right, because I don't know how to do anything. I can't really quickly do that. I was like, "What did you do?" And I was like, I spent all day doing that, And so I said, "Look, I'm just gonna." So I talk her into leaving. The next day, she and her friend are going to do the garage sale thing, which is their thing to do. They go off and do their thing. And I was like, I'll try anything. So I grabbed my condenser. I've got an MXL V69 Mogami series condenser. It sounds really, fancy, but it's a low cost condenser with a tube in it. And I just happened to.
Has a tube in it?
It has I think a 12 AT7 or AU7. Maybe a 12AX7 tube in it. But when I tried that mic, there's two versions of that basic mic. There's one with the tube and one without the tube. And I wanted it for vocals, for speaking. And when I heard the difference between the two, the one with the tube was so much more rich.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, this is night and day. Why would I not have the tube?
I didn't know that it had a tube in it.
Yeah, and so I put that on the amp, and I put it through, and I played something, and I listened back, and I was like, I've got the sound. I'm not going to change anything. And I'll play it for you later, but the tone that I got is somewhere between a Van Halen type of sound, like Women and Children First, Fair Warning era, and Steve Lukather on the Rosanna, the Rosanna solo.
Oh,
it's
okay.
a real. I mean. Okay. talk about lucky mic placement. Holy shit. I mean, I'm not saying I play like that or my fingers create that tone. I'm saying that's what was coming out and being read through the microphone. And it was great. And I went down and it was one of those things. It was another thing where I flipped on the mic and I had an idea of how I wanted to go. And 10 minutes later it was done. And I got a call from Graham. He's like, what did you do on that Faith Alone solo? Because that sounds freaking incredible. I was like, well, I just did this, and I also would send him a DI in case he wanted to reamp. But he goes, I don't have to do anything with that. I don't have to do anything with that. That thing's perfect. And I was like, oh. But nice. That's my favorite solo on the album. But anyway, what's incredible about the Dread Fascination album, and I've told you this before, but I feel it's important to toot Graham's horn to a certain extent. Don't go anywhere weird with that, by the way. But Graham is such a talented musician. He's a talented drummer, talented songwriter, good guitar player. So he's a multi-instrumentalist, even though he's primarily a drummer. Wrote great songs, great engineering work, great mixing. Did a real great job mastering.
Has he had releases after that? 'Cause that was in 2013.
No, he has. I don't think he's got anything after that. But he's done a lot of studio work out in LA as an engineer. He's interned with some people, apparently at some pretty heavy places.
He's built his skill up a little bit.
Yeah, and he's just great. But it was such a strong.
What's the chances of getting this motherfucker out here?
I don't know, but I would love for him to be out here.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
should talk to him because he's just awesome.
Let me talk to this motherfucker.
He is the nicest guy in the world too.
If there was listening to what he's doing, and he definitely has some chops, not just music chops, but also engineering chops.
Right.
I would be interested to possibly have him produce. Possibly.
Oh, you know what? And I mean, he's a good guy because it's like he had no problem saying, your timing's off here, or that's not what I'm looking for. But he was very constructive in how he did everything. I
don't even need him to be constructive. I just need him to tell me what the fuck I'm doing wrong at that point.
Well, he's a good guy to work with, is what I'm saying.
I gotcha.
This record was so good, and it was just something that he did to get it out of himself, so to speak. It was a cathartic thing for him, I think. But it got around the prog community, and all of a sudden, it gets written up in Classic Rock Presents Prog magazine, which I think is the largest prog magazine in the world.
Mm-hmm. For all that's worth.
Well, right. Unfortunately, it's not as big as it should be because God knows the musicians in progressive music are incredible.
By the way, I'm trying to be a part of the movement to change that. To make prog more accessible.
Well, it's like there was a period there where prog ruled everything.
Yeah,
in the
late
'60s, the late '60s through the mid to late '70s, prog ruled everything. But it got written up. You got really good reviews. People were really saying, "Man, this is an incredible record," and it was clear that they wanted to hear more. And so, I hope Graham starts putting out more stuff, and I would hope that he would let me play on it because, God, it's just a freaking great album. I mean, anyway, but that's all about Graham. Call me Graham.
Graham, hit us up, please.
Yeah.
You need to Nashville. You need to send this his way. You need
to move to Nashville. It's a lot cheaper than LA.
It's way cheaper. It's a lot less douchey. Super cool people, way more music. I mean, I don't know if it's way more music opportunity, but a lot more dense music opportunity. It's all kind of centralized. It's not kind of dispersed out amongst this giant metropolis of bullshit. You can just show up and you'll find someone you can talk to randomly on the street who is also into music as much as you are.
Right.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, I am also a prog man like you, Graham. Sorry, we're having a whole talk with Graham right now.
Right. Well, he's a good dude, and God knows what he's saying on the other side, but it's probably polite. So,
well, I guess, guys, I have to.
Seriously, he's a good dude. Great sense of humor too, so.
Oh God, I hope so. Legit though. After we're done with this cast, I'll actually show you something I'm actually working on, as a real solo project. The one I showed you before was just something a patron wanted me to do. Mm-hmm. And it was still original, but
I think you played me some stuff one time.
I played you. Yeah, I did. I was about to drop the name, and I'm glad I caught myself because I don't want any of this shit leaked out at all. Zero. I don't want any of it. Yeah, but yeah, I'll show you one or two others that I'm interested in. Either way, how much time do we got?
It's 6:48.
We got like 13 minutes.
All right.
You ready?
Hit me. Yeah.
You ready to jump into gear?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I feel like we're gonna have time for like 2 pedals, maybe.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
actually, you know what? Let's dive into your guitar. Let's talk about the Illuminatones.
Well, you know what's weird is my guitar is it's an 80s Super Strat that I built it in 1985, and I was lucky enough. I've got an it's the Dagocaster. It's got the Italian flag on it. But the body, it's an old boogie body, and I don't know how I got an old boogie body, but I'm glad I did. And it's an old boogie body that we think might be late 70s, mid to late 70s, so maybe the same era as Eddie's boogie body. Which, God, if I would have known I was getting that, I would have just flipped out. But I paid $30 for it off a guy named Earl Bell, who was, you know. He was his own kind of dude. And then I traded this neck. A buddy of mine named Dan Burke had this neck, and I had this ESP neck that was unstable under stage lights. So he let me have this neck because this neck was super chunky, and I just sat down with a file and made it, shaped it so it fit this. You know,
you're talking about the back end.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the front of the neck, the fingerboard's been planed a bunch of times.
That finger, I played it upside down, obviously, but like it feels nice on that fretboard.
It's really nice. You know, it's when Mormouth just started doing their compound radius stuff. The guitar was originally built in '85, but this neck got onto the guitar in '88, and so it's a 10 to 16 radius compound, and it's been refretted, you know, at least 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I've played the crap out of it.
I've refretted my guitar once.
Really?
Really?
Are you practicing enough, young man?
Good question. That's a damn good question.
I put stainless frets on here because I was just burning through frets. You know, I've got a pretty heavy touch.
I had I did have stainless when it started out. That was probably part of it.
Yeah. So this Floyd, it's an original Floyd when Kramer was the only place you could get a Floyd, and I've had to change a few things, like the original screws that you would screw into the wood screws that you put in the body. They moved in such a way. It was such a homemade guitar project. I mean, you know, it's like it looks like it was originally a rear routed body, but it was originally like a top routed, and I just took wood and filled it in because I wanted a rear routed body. Stupid. But I did it. In any case, to cut this out, I had done it too close to this, and so this screw had pushed forward. So I had to rebuild this area when I completely rebuilt the guitar and then made it so it was rear routed and you know, instead of front loaded. I redid all this stuff.
See it better.
And so I put the bushings and the posts in there. And then I switched out the arm for the arm that had the screw down so you could lock into a given position. And I've decided that's not...
If I may.
Sure.
Just so you can pull it up and see it a little better.
So I've decided that's not the way I want it anymore. I like the original arm that you would screw in because I like to let my arm swing. So I'm going to pull this out and put the original back in. I kept all the stuff. And then
what was the way that it was before?
The way that it was before, you had this nut and bolt system, and you take the bar and you put it in and just screw it in the same way an old Stratocaster would.
Oh, okay. I thought you said that the new way was like that. Okay.
No. The new way, you've got this. You see how you've got these
little like
it's threading right here. So you've got this little cap on the bar, and it comes in, and then you tighten it down there. And so
so mine is like completely different from both of those.
Yeah, yours is Ibanez, where you can put it in and you can set the tension of which it grips the bar, and you can either place the bar where you want or you can let it swing free.
Yeah,
that's cool. Now I got these, and they're called hollow points because anybody who's ever had to intonate a Floyd knows that it's a real pain in the ass.
It's a bitch.
And so the hollow points, what they do is they allow you to keep everything there, and then you can loosen this up and it'll keep everything where it's supposed to, and you just turn this so it moves up and down like that. But what I found is it really jacks up your ability to do the fine tuning. So what I'm going to do, I've got some friends that have Floyds. I'm going to give them one of the hollow points. I mean, if you want one, I don't know if this threading will work for you, but you take one of these things, and I'll put all the original ones on, but when I set the intonation, I'll just use the hollow point thing and use that on that one, and then switch it out for the other one when I go back, when I'm done setting the intonation. And you can see I have no problem with modifying the hell out of this thing. I dug a hole here to accommodate these, because when I built this, the bridge, instead of being flush with the body, had a slight angle. So I was putting an angle here so that I could put a D-tuner. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to route out this area and put a piece of maple that I've got right there so that it can be flush. And what I'll probably do is it's a slightly figured maple, and I'll probably put...
How long have you had this for? Like
1985.
That same guitar?
Yeah.
That you've been modding the piss out of?
Oh yeah, I've had this.
Wow.
My first gig ever, I played with this guitar. It's been all over the world, and this is the wife. I mean, Julie's the girlfriend. But this is the wife. This one never leaves me.
You know your place now,
Julie might, but this one won't.
Now.
But it's got old Schaller machines on it, and
whoa, turn that back around. That's orange.
Well, that's because the sun faded it.
Oh, okay.
There's a little...
Okay.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm half Italian and...
half Mexican, apparently.
Oh, no. And my grandmother was, on my mother's side, was half Irish and half Scottish. So
Irish,
right?
All right.
So that can be the Irish part of it.
All right.
But
what?
that's gonna get going. I'm gonna get in there and make it red. But on top of that, there's one of my favorite players is Richie Kotzen.
Yes.
He's so deadly.
Winery Dogs.
Yeah, he's Winery Dogs, but he was also...
hey, George.
Not George.
Oh, hi, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
Shit.
So
I've like triple booked.
So anyway, I saw that he had this dial around his volume knob, and I had the good fortune of asking him what it was, and he said, "Oh, that's a tuner." I was like, So I went out and bought a bunch of them to put in all my guitars, because it's like with the Pavlov's Dog tours, these were not high budget tours. There was a lot of consideration with flying of minimizing weight. Weight is a big deal when you're flying overseas to play. And so I thought, well, if I can put the tuner in the guitar, and I put the guitar in the gig bag and carry it up with me, which I've not had a problem with that so far. That saves like a pound or so in my effects. So that makes it easier. Now I've got this Sonic Research tuner, the Turbo Tuner, the ST300. That thing's a thing's a strobe tuner.
Man?
Yeah. You're gonna have to pull it up. It's dual locked down.
Whew, okay. No, that's you. Yeah, that's on there. The thing's not moving.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I got a little mini crowbar in my case.
You got some freaking Gorilla Glue on that guy. Holy cow.
Have you ever used Dual Lock?
I have not.
Dual Lock is so much better than Velcro. It's there you go.
Oh, damn. Oh, okay. I've seen that stuff before.
Yeah, this stuff is much better than Velcro as far as holding stuff. Of course, I've got a mini crowbar that I use.
We'll present to the audience.
It's awesome. Now, it's awesome, and I say it's awesome, and I don't have a relationship with that company at all. So I'm telling you the truth. It's awesome.
As opposed to everything else he's been telling you tonight.
Well, no. I mean, what I'm saying is, there's no benefit to me, saying it one way or the other. But so I've got this tuner. It's from a company called N-Tune, end tune is no longer around because all of a sudden at about the same time that's when people would get the clip-on tuners, and the problem with the end tune thing is it's super accurate, but they used inexpensive pots. Because see what the original deal was is you'd pull up the pot.
Can't do that.
Yeah, you'd pull up the pot. It would cut off the signal, and it would turn on the tuner. So that you had a cheap pot and with a switch that wasn't so great, and so it would fail. And so what I did instead,
even if it didn't fail, I mean you're gonna lose some of the tone quality out of that.
Right. So what I did, and I saw that Richie had done the same thing. Is when mine failed, I got a good pot and I got a good on-off switch, and I just made it separate. So now this is over here.
The DIY Dago caster.
Oh, totally. Well, and it's
Hold
like.
on. Can you demonstrate one more time, because I don't know if they can see.
Oh, the
little flashy.
The light show.
The flashy.
Yeah, but it's funny. The Dago caster. You see how this is purple here?
Yes.
When I first painted it, that was like royal blue.
What?
It was royal blue.
Wow.
And the whole front of the guitar, see the back of the guitar is the Italian flag. Now, originally the whole guitar was the Italian flag, but the back of the guitar, the front of the guitar was the flag for the region of Campania, which is Naples, which is where I'm from.
I saw that picture.
Yeah, and it was blue. Blue.
Napolitan. That is also my blood.
Okay, there you go. Good man, good man. And I had the flag here, the crest here. It was blue with the shield, white shield with the red diagonal. Well, it was nitrocellulose paint, and so the sun would hit it, and it just faded from a really nice blue.
What are you doing with your guitar in the sun all the time?
I have windows in my house.
Okay, it makes sense.
I don't live in a prison cell. They don't lock me in the closet and say play guitar. So the blue just went to purple, and so all my friends would go, "Nice purple guitar." And it's like,
dude, you could just relate it back to Jimmy at that point.
No, well,
it's
like, dude, I love Prince, but I'm not Prince, and so it really bothered me because the region of Campania does not have a purple flag, and so I got tired of looking at it. And in Thanksgiving one year, my cat was very sick, and so I didn't go home. I stayed with her for Thanksgiving, and I was like, okay, I'd gotten the pickups from the guys at Lace. These are, by the way, Dago buckers. What they did is they'd gotten a thing to etch the aluminum, and I said, "Can I get a red one, a chrome one, and a green one?" And they're like, "Sure." And so to test out their thing to etch it, they knew I called my guitar the Dago caster. Thank you, Mike Lacey. He's the one who named it, and it stuck.
We'll have to say we're gonna have to wrap up pretty quickly here.
Okay, but they etched up the back of it to call them Dago buckers. But anyway, that's the Dago caster.
That is a beautiful piece of work.
Oh, no, it's not, but it works.
Yeah, dude, honestly, like, for me, that is an actual real piece of art. That really is.
Well,
for several reasons.
It's a player's guitar. It's not pretty, but it gets the job done and then some.
And not only that, but it has all of the history of the artist inside of it and outside of it.
For better or worse.
Yeah. Bill, it was a fucking pleasure, man.
This was a blast.
I would love to do this again. We'll have to schedule another time.
Okay.
Guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next podcast.
Yeah. Sorry for all the rambling, by the way. I'm hard to shut up.
Dude, it's literally the name of the game. Don't even worry about it. All right. Rock on, y'all.